start building out this template starting with the nav bar. Now I'm going to grab the nav bar from Bootstrap, which is the framework I'll be using for my CSS. They've got any number of options on their example page, so I'll just inspect here and grab the element that I need. And we'll be integrating our own JavaScript, and we won't be using any of Bootstrap's. So we'll create our own toggle for the nav bar when it comes to mobile, if need be. We'll take a look and see here shortly. We're going to be tying in this nav bar with the local data that I showed you in the last episode. Now, we're going to be doing a for loop through our data, and so which case anything as far as the nav links are concerned will be looped through, and then we'll be building out these line items with the nav item class. And I'm just going to comment out what the example had because we're not going to need it. It's just for the example, as they're saying. And we'll go ahead and go back to our functionality.js, which is where we're going to have everything set. Now I'm going to reconstruct the hierarchy here. So it has the local data first, and then it can go for the functionality file. That way it knows what I'm talking about when it says, let's go through this data. Now I've also copied the data above and pasted it and put it into comments, so I kind of know what I'm dealing with. Now, obviously, the way I've built this out is pretty sweet. This, as you can see, this config can have multiple objects in it. So it's an array with multiple objects. So that means that you just change one number, and we've got a different restaurant on our hands with a different theme and everything, different content, different images. So that's the whole point of having an array of objects for the config. So they would always be going to the same web place, but whatever parameter we give them determines what data they pull out and right into the template. So let's go ahead and build out these nav links. As you can see, it's a string that starts off with no characters, and then it loops through building out the line items, and it just adds to the string until nav HTML is finished, and then we go and apply that HTML to the class nav. So yeah, basically we're going to do a few more things, like we'll tell it what's active, and we need to put it on click, so when they select something, it actually does what is selected. So there's a little tailoring to fit our needs. We can't just use Bootstrap just by itself. It doesn't have anything built in like this. So, and now once we have the links selected, which we have created in those in these nav items, we'll go ahead and start determining what exactly it is we're going to be doing. Now, obviously, as I discussed, we have the menu already prepared, and so I'm just going to represent the other pages, and then after we've done that, we'll dig into the actual menu page. And we'll start setting things up into categories, and then from there we'll display them. So the functionality at the end of this will be, well on its way for the menu page, and then in the latter half of the series, we'll start making it look like a professional website, similar to the ones you saw on the Squarespace restaurants examples. So we'll just kind of see what we like there and move on. So for the link selected, what I need to do is go through all the for eaches and make sure that I take out all the active classes. And then the one that was selected, I want to make sure that one has the active class so that we are aware of which ones we selected in the menu. So it's just going to scroll through and apply these classes or remove them depending on what was chosen. And let's go see what's happening. Looks like we've got a couple of errors. It says it doesn't see that. Selector, yeah, so it doesn't understand that selector. It's not working just yet. So let's go see what happened. So you can just go with UL nav. Be fine. That's the only one on the page. If another one shows up on the page, obviously we have to be more specific, but since it's the only UL nav class, that'll be fine. And there it is. Now we need to give it some space. It looks like the classes haven't been applied correctly, so let's just move around. There we go. We'll just close that apostrophe. And now they're all spread out just like they need to be. And you can see how the active class is now selected. We just have to have the default of home selected when they first get there. And then we're also going to be changing the title. So it is what it is. When we go through here, we'll change the title of the page too when we change the link. And we're also going to have, each link is going to be represented in a section. Right here I write in the word home, about, contact, menu. But later on I come through and do it with numbers instead, like iteration numbers. And that way we don't have to have set specific hard-coded home, hard-coded contact, hard-coded menu. We can make it up as we go along. Or hey, what is a different language, you know? That wouldn't work. So we're going to be doing it later on. We'll switch those to numbers. Anyway, so what this is basically a one-page app that I'm building. Now, these are all going to be hidden, and they're going to appear to be pages. So when someone selects it, we're going to hide all the sections except for the one that was selected. Very similar to the way we did the nav links. Now, once they've selected, we'll show that data will already be there. We'll just, take the hide class away so we can see the data. And that's it. So there'll be 4 sections to start out with, and the home page will be visible by default. And then as you select them, then we'll toggle through and show the one you selected. And as you can see, I'm doing that very thing right here. Very similar to what we did with our nav links. I'm going to go through and tell all the data section. I need to get those to all kind of disappear. And there's a couple ways to do it. I want to make this very legible. And so, there you could be ternary operator if you wanted here. You could do a couple things that are kind of confusing, but I'm just going to do it where like the next one down that was selected, that one they're all turned off and hidden except for and then at the end we just say, okay, now show the one that was selected. And that's that. Here we go. We got a little bit of an error here. 1 second. Yeah, you got to take out the all. There we go. Now let's go ahead and do those generic identifiers like I was talking about. This will make it a lot easier. Yes, you how 0, 1, 2, and 3. Like in the future we might add more, but let's just go ahead and make sure that these will be represented and not hard-coded, just in case someone wants to write a different language or something or anything else. We can't have them hard-coded. Still got looks like we're missing a little bit of the syntax is a little messed up. Let's fix that up. Nope, almost. Looks like, oh yeah, I see. So let me go ahead and clean a little bit of this up. There we go. So it's showing and hiding all the sections now. Good. So we've got that working. And from here we can move on with the rest of the site. Now that we have that, that's kind of the beginning section of it, and all the sections have been introduced and we know how to toggle through them. Now let's go ahead and let it know on the default when we built out this nav HTML, we want to make sure that it gives the active to the home page by default, which means that when iterations equals 0, active needs to equal the string active. Otherwise it would be blank, and that would be it. So on unload, that will just be the default. Fairly simple, just something to do. There you go. And when we build it out, that's how it works. All right. Okay, so let's go ahead and get to the importing of the JSON data from the restaurant menu. Now here it is. It's just something I got from MongoDB. We're not going to be using all of it. I'm probably going to go for a category, title. We're going to be using the image, the ingredients, just a few things. You know, there's like a few details I'd like to use when it comes to each item in the recipe app. Those will be represented as items in the restaurant menu. And I'm going to go ahead and build out like a card for each one of them. Bootstrap comes along with specific cards that are kind of nice. They have a lot of padding, and they'll have a room for titles, and it's nice and spacious. It looks professional. So what we need to do is kind of imagine here, what I'm doing here is imagining what's going to look like. And I'm going to put a list group of multiple items, and then within that, each item, there's going to be another list group of all its ingredients. So there's going to be some nested loops going on here. And we're also going to have to call the API call to get, the data from wherever it may be. Some people might have it, away like in another server or somewhere else. Maybe it is somewhere on a recipe app, for instance. And so in which case, ours is in the actual same folder, but we're going to treat it as if it's anywhere. And so we're just going to call an API call for it to get the JSON file. Now, I like using async await because it kind of has an easy process that's easy to read, and then you don't have to deal with a lot of kind of the race option where you fire off a function before the data even arrives. Therefore, the async await is perfect for my needs here. And you can easily just type it up anywhere, and there'll be examples of it. There's a lot of different ways that you can utilize an API call using JavaScript. This is just the way I'm choosing to do it. Now we know that this is going to be hosted on GitHub, and GitHub is only going to be hosting static stuff. So the interesting thing about this is it will work when asking and posting. When get and post are always going to be okay, even if you were working on a static site. Granted, if you were going to run Node or something like that, it wouldn't work. So you have to have, something else running there. But if you're just going to run a static site on GitHub and you can run your Node options or your PHP options somewhere else, then that's great. Then your services will just live elsewhere. Now, in this case, I'm actually using a JSON file, which is acting as a service. It's just a hard-coded piece of data of what they have at their restaurant. And you can put multiple restaurants in that, like I was saying earlier, into that array of multiple objects. And that being the case, we can have it somewhere else, or we can have it basically in just a JSON file, like I'm showing an example of here within these files. So what you would do is basically download this and this app that I've written, and then you take that file and fill it out with your own restaurant information, and then from there, voila, you post it on GitHub, and then you've got your restaurant site up. And, you choose the theme, and you upload images, and then you tell this thing where the images are located so it can display them. And there you go. Now, I think I'm probably going to be putting together some kind of content management system so that you can build out that object if you don't have it already, or if you don't know the syntax for JSON and you want to make sure it is done correctly. So I'll probably have something that will generate a JSON file with this correct model, this schema prepared for it. And then from there, it'll make it easier. No one has to know how to do code or anything, and that'll work. So as of right now, I'm writing a path to this URL. In the future, I'll be changing it up, and it'll all be in that in the config. But for right now, I just want to get it running. As you can see, it's working, but everything's written as objects, so you need to stringify that. So the JSON data did make it in the first time. That's a good sign. So let's just do it again. There you go. So and suppose when it says object in brackets multiple times over, it means it's iterated and it's displaying whether there's a representation of an object. It's not displaying the object until you tell it to stringify, which is what I just did. So now that we have that all kind of working, we're going to need to get a list of we go through all the menu items and the recipe items and collect all the categories and put them in a list. And then from there, we want to run it again and put everything that's in each category into its own specific array. And so that would take a nested loop. And then, which in that nested loop, each item has its own ingredients. So there'll be another 4 nested loops. So it'll be a triple 4 nested loop within there to get the ingredients built out per item. So let's start off with the categories. It's just the menu. It's just one of the things that was written on the JSON object from MongoDB. We had things like bread and saute, chicken, seafood, things like that. And so we need to build that out. And it's going to be a string initially. It's an empty string called categories HTML. And you saw we were going to target it in that there's an unordered list that we were going to target it at once we build out this string of characters. And so what I want to do is basically push everything into the categories. I want to push all the categories into a categories list. However, remember, I don't want them to be listed multiple times. So as you can see here, I'm going to go through a loop. And I'm going to do the category is going to be here. And then we also want to do items. So once we go through, we'll do another loop and we will be filling out the items too. And so this is going to be the start of an object that we'll be utilizing shortly in the rendering of our elements, of our items. So here I go. I'm going to start building out the line items within the category list. I got to make sure that's spelled wrong. It looks like I've got a misspelling. There we go. So list item group as a class, and we're going to show the category. And we're also going to push an object with category key and item key into a categories array. Now, obviously, once we get all this HTML correct, we need to apply it to the inner HTML of the categories ID. That's just once the string has been built up. Now, instead of using a line item, I'm going to actually switch it over to button, but it still has the list group item class. As you can see, it's coming. It's all undefined right now, so we'll work on that. And take a closer look at the object model and see exactly how we need to write this. And so we're looking for title, category, category, as in 1. There we go. There we go. Go a little bit of titling. And here we go. And then, as you can see, everything's represented multiple times, so we don't want that. We want to tell it, hey, if you've already, let's make a category list, and we'll put the category name in there each time. And the thing is, we'll know if something's already been pushed in there. And if it already exists, as I said here, is that the index equals -1, go ahead and build this. If it doesn't equal -1, that means that we've already made it, and so we don't want to go ahead and add it again. So we'll only do it one time per item. And so we also want to get the titles, and obviously we're going to get the messages and the ingredients. So there's a lot of information that we're going to be compiling together. So now that we've built the category menu, let's go through the menu again. Yeah, so what I'm trying to do here is tell it to put it in the categories items folder of the index of. And that doesn't really work. It's kind of a mess. So what I ended up doing is I build out this information and apply it shortly. So you'll see as I walk through it. Yeah. So what it's asking, I mean, I get the point. It's like add this to wherever the index is of the items. So categories of whatever this is in the categories list, the index of it, we need to add that to the items. It makes sense in theory. This is going to be one of the biggest problems that it creates, and I end up coming back around and fixing it. No big deal. It probably would have worked if I put more time and effort into it, but it was pain in the butt. So I went ahead and went back. Let's take a look at what we've rendered thus far. Oh, yeah, so menu's not iterable. No problem. See, let's get the 3 dots there after menu. It doesn't want those. So let's take those out. Let's try it again. Okay, so we'll go to the menu. Looks like also for working here, and let's click let's see what it works. What we're going to do now is once a category is selected, I'm going to create a select category function. And it's going to pass the name of the category. And what I do is I build out a card, which is Bootstrap's idea of something that's kind of a unique element that stands out with a title, a body, and a footer all its own. Now, I'm going to build this out in HTML and kind of move it. I'll copy and paste and move it to the JavaScript file and then comment it out. Because what's going to happen is every time a menu item is listed, I'm going to have to render a card with the data in it per item. And so it's a lot like JSX, as you can see in like React, is where I have to build out a string. But since it's not JSX, I have to build it out a string and then apply it to where it needs to be on an assigned target within the HTML. And as you can see, I'm building out targets. But in a little while, you'll see that I move this. And these targets aren't going to be necessary, but it does tell you kind of what I'm doing here. Like I want my message to be here, and I want my title to be here. I want the ingredients to be here, of course. And so this is the application I will be using in an iterated form when it goes through the for loop. And as you can see now, I'm just going to write out the basic function. We are going to be receiving the selected category. I don't like the way that that's named. It's named too close to the actual function itself, so we're going to have to change that. But let's get on with it. Let's start writing what we've got. We're going to go through the categories object. And we're going to say, hey, if this equals selected category, let's go ahead and selected. That's fine. That way it doesn't say the same thing as the name of the function. So it's saying, if that equals the same thing, if it is the category that we've selected, I need you to go through and get those items. And let's move this HTML, and we'll go ahead and put the target in for where these cards are going to exist by typing in a target. So it's going to be an unordered list, a list group, with a target ID of items target. So this is where we'll put our menu items target. All right, and I just commented out the HTML that we're going to be repeating multiple times. And so once something's been built out, we're going to have the items HTML presented as well. So we need to start out that string empty. You know what? I feel like we could start it out with like a title. So let's just go, whatever we selected will be the title and a heading 3. That'll be our start. And then we go through a for loop of our category details, or basically the category items for the most part. And I'll go ahead and say that this is going to concatenate. So we're going to, whatever it was, we're going to add on to it. And then here I go, and I bring in the HTML that it's going to need to repeat where the values are inside of it. Similar to the way JSX would be doing it, I'm concatenating a string that's rather large with multiple cards, one for every representation of an item in our menu. And we'll just keep on writing this string out. Yeah, unfortunately, when you copy and paste into here, it spreads it all out and messes it all up, so it takes a second to fix. And so this is just a few seconds of me fixing what was broken when we pasted it. Now, I've had people tell me that this is tough to read once it gets close to the end. So in a second here, I will bring it back so we can all have it legibly on the left side. There we go. So this is what we're going to build out. And as you can see here, the ingredients is just going to be a big list right now. And bread is not defined, so that's coming in without the parentheses, or without the apostrophes, so that's not good. Yeah, well, it's not a big deal. Reference error breakfast is not defined. I'll go up there and find that out, and it'll be super easy. I'm just going to start using the tick so I can comment these out correctly. It's a little easier to track the apostrophes and the closing and the openings of the different variables. And so therefore, I will just use this item to clean it up and make sure it looks professional, and make sure that everything is set out correctly. So it's starting to work a little bit. And I remember what it is. I mentioned it earlier. And so I'll be going back in and getting that index of out of there and doing a standard fix here in a second to fix that bug. Because it's basically grabbing the wrong things. And then these all need to be, as you can see, if you're doing a nested loop, it cannot obviously be I if the first one iterator is I. So I'm using J. There. So it's getting closer. And as you can see, the ingredients are there, but they're all mushed together at the bottom. So it's not really working great. It's off a little bit, as you can see. It's like you hit seafood and the chicken stuff comes up. So, yeah, we'll dial in on that. That's definitely not what we want. All right. So first off, what I did was I came back over and I looked at all the data to see, is that what it says? And it turns out that some of it did say that. I don't know why spinach and mac and cheese is under soup. You have to bake that. So I turned it over to the bread section, because when I worked for a restaurant, anything that had to be baked was just comes out of the bakery area. So if it's a pizza or bread of any sort, or lasagna, or anything that had cheese on it that had to be melted, comes out of the bread area. So let me just double check to make sure these are all sane and correct. And now that I know what's going on a little bit closer, let's go ahead and do that nested loop for the ingredients. And then we'll solve all this. So like I said, we're going to be doing a third nested loop. We've already used I as an iterator, and we've already used J as an iterator. And so let me, we're going to have to go even further. This one, the for loop thus far, is on the outside of that one. So we'll watch and see how we can kind of clean this up. I don't like that categories detail. It seems to be confusing. So in a minute, I'm going to take all those out of here. I'm going to move this for loop down and where it needs to be, nested, change the iterator to H, so it will make sense. And then we'll start putting together our HTML for the ingredients. It's just line items. And we're going to be concatenating the line items and then applying them to its target. Yeah. So it'll be going with the iterator H. So yeah, it's hitting something, but not the correct, like we hit breakfast and pork, but honey balsamic salmon shows up. So let's fix that now. It's confusing. And it's going to be up a little bit. So here we go. I'm coming up there. This is our problem. Yeah, those are all correct, and they're all our strings, so they're passing correctly. It's just not calling correctly. Soup's dead. It's putting in the wrong stuff. So, yeah, well, that one obviously isn't soup, so I can put it to bread. And I'm just going to write in, because you have to bake it. And the same for the mac and cheese with cheese on top and spinach. Like, that's a baked item. So you put it in the bread area. And here I write a little, since it is baked. Yes. Because you have to bake it, melt it, things like that. Okay, so now that we know that everything's kind of correct, but it's still running like crap, let's go figure out the fix. Yeah, they're all way off. Here's our problem. We're going to go through all the menu items and then determine their category. There we go. So anytime we're going to go through the menu and then go through the categories. Now, anytime the categories meet and match the menu category, then we know that this is going to need to be stored in here and correctly into the folder. They weren't getting stored into the correct item folders within their object. Items need to be this one, whatever they were initially, and we're going to add whatever this new item is, menu item. There you go. So each item will be added to it based on that. Okay, so now we have, as you can see, when you get soup, the soup all shows up. But the thing is, the problem is it's showing up multiple times. And we don't want that either. Like, bread will be represented more than once, and so on and so forth. So let's kind of move things around. And I would say also ask it, if you already have that in there, don't put it again, similar to what we did in the categories menu to kind of stop that. And that's a fairly simple index of -1 equals. So if it's -1 equals, it's not there yet. So we'll just build that. Yeah, same thing. And so I'm just going to push all the titles into temp list. And then I'm going to say, hey, is this in temp list already? No? Okay, good. Or if it is, then don't put it there. And that's exactly what I'm doing. Saying, is this title already here in this list? If it's -1, it means no. Then go ahead and push it. There we go. So now I'm just showing it, everything gets shown once. Well, or does it? Yeah, so it's still adding up too much. Move the temp list up there, the array, just move it up a little bit further, and then it will do what it needs to do. Okay, so our functionality is working now, and everything's only showing up once. So once I've gotten it up to GitHub, I'm going to change the data path to what we have it as. That way it can always be correct. And so, as you can see, it doesn't, now that it's up to GitHub, it doesn't find the restaurant data.json. It's like, I don't know what that file is. So what I'm going to do is going ahead and I'm going to take out what I've written into the API call. Like, that path just needs to be a variable. No hard coding of anything. So let me take that out. And then now I'll just hard code the whole thing into this. And it should work. Let's go ahead and get it back into GitHub and make sure that it all works. Yeah, and there, it's going all the way there. It worked. So it got the menu. It does work with that API call. And let's try it from GitHub from the browser here. Let's do one more call. We got to obviously push it. You know, updated API link and address. And wait a few minutes for this thing to deploy. Almost there. All right, so let's go take a look. Let's make sure that API call worked. Yeah, we're all good. So it worked fine. Now we can pull it with an API call with a hard-coded link in the local data, and it works out good. So the functionality is working good. We'll make it look pretty shortly. I just want to make sure that we can tie in the menus and we can tie in the heading labels, and we'll keep going. I hope you learned something. Thanks.